Good day, peeps. Welcome to Heart Talks. Today, my guest is Timothy Robert, and you may recognize him. I've been sharing his posts now for some time, especially in my Ascension Symptoms group, my network of empaths on Facebook and off Facebook. Tim's charts, I recognized a passion and a love in his posts at Facebook, keeping us aware of what energies, the solar energies that are affecting the cosmos, the planet, and us. And so he's been kind enough to spend time and teach us how to read those charts. I know that I post them, and I really don't know exactly about them other than if it's red and it's going like this, something's going on, and that at that point I can contact my network and see what's going on. So Tim, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for all your efforts, time, and your great passion that you share with everyone.
Thank you for inviting me into this show. I'm already smiling. I like this. So it's not a matter of how many people are going to. It's more about the people that are supposed to get this information are now able to get this information, and that's. I mean, I'm honored to do. It's an extension of what I already do by myself on Facebook and sometimes on YouTube, but it's mostly on Facebook. And
well, I'll tell you, and I will share this with you. A few days ago, I had an issue that I needed to address, and Tim was right there, and he, I don't think he even knew how much he was helping me.
Oh my God, the lawnmowers.
Well, I was attacked by the lawnmower, and he directed me. We were trying to get together to do the show, and he directed me to a post where he had also had epic
like
lawnmower incident, and I thank you, because you really, I mean, I know I can get through that the next time now. So
No.
Thanks so much for that.
That's so much fun. Again, you bring it. Yeah, it's about attitude. You know, I can go do a negative spiral because they're taking me out of my sleep with their unacceptable noise and whatever. But I can also see the fun part, and then I start making a fun post. Like there is noise and there is noise. So,
oh boy, I'll tell you.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, we're going to get into some charts. We're going to show you what charts look like when there's like not much of stuff going on, and then we're going to show you charts that shows the difference and what all these charts are telling us. So stay tuned, and I hope you can get from this show not only understanding of the energies, but also places to research, and also, most of all, to let go of the fear and understand that this is a very natural process that we're going through, and we are going through it together. So here we go. Here is our first chart.
This is my most recent post this week. This is a good one to start with, because I was a bit in doubt, like, am I going to make a space weather update, yes or no? And it has to do with what you see already here. There are 4 pictures, and the post is about that right now the situation is calm, quiet, flat. There is nothing happening on the sun. And that's why I expected with 4 pictures. I say, you know, you see a picture of an X-ray flux. Yeah, the moment that the sun is having sunspots that are positively and negatively charged and are creating a lot of turbulence, and all of a sudden there is a coronal mass reaction, and we get a solar flare that's just banging a lot of plasma towards our planet. You know, that's happening. and then we see this X-ray flux jumping over the whole chart. That's not happening right now. So it's flat, no activity in the sunspots and solar flare area.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a quick start to talk about what's happening on the sun. You know, the sun is a living organism, and it has a lot of magnetic, electromagnetic activities. And yeah, just like we have continents and we have oceans and we have a north magnetic and a south magnetic pole, and we got a lot of streams, we have got our ley lines, whatever, you know, that's in a big version happening on our sun. And where positive and negative activities meet each other on more weaker spots, that's where sunspots all of a sudden can show up, bam, and sunspots occur on the fly, and they can become extremely big. We go there in this interview. We go back to September last year, where it was very, very aggressive. But right now it's not. So this is where I started. Yeah, it's so calm. There is nothing happening with solar flares and sunspots. And another thing about the sun, it's rotating. It has a kind of 4-week rotation period, and not exactly. It's interesting, you know, the sun is not a massive thing like our rocky Earth. That's a rocky planet, but the sun is gas. So on the equator, it's moving faster than on the poles. Mm-hmm. Or the other way, it doesn't matter to me, you know, I don't need to know those details. I just know that the rotation is 28 to 30 days, and somebody chooses whether it is the equator, it's faster, or the poles. But, you know, we get those every around 4 weeks. We get the same position from the sun facing towards us. And in like I say, we have got continents and oceans. The sun has places where the activity is less. And we see those as holes because they are dark. When we have pictures, we have got telescopes in space and we look at the sun and say, hey, that's black. So we call that a coronal hole. In real, it's not black, but the sun is, of course, having a temperature up to thousands and thousands of degrees. That's so much light that you need to filter your cameras to even be able to look at the sun. And when you filter the camera and you still see a light ball, you say, hey, that's the sun. Yeah, then the weaker parts of the sun, you also filter away, and they appear then to be black. So we call it holes, but it are not holes. It are just colder areas, and that is what we call the coronal holes, where more easily solar plasma can escape. And that's a frequent thing. It's happening all the time. So if the sun every 4 weeks faces our planet, then there is a leaking activity. We call it a coronal hole stream that's coming towards our planet. This is what we can predict. We call that coronal hole streams, and we know which one is heavy and which one is less heavy. So that's the kind of thing where we have the satellites with telescopes around the sun and around the Earth, and then we have a lot of scientists, and they say, yeah, this is about likely within 2-3 days it will slam, and this is a heavy one, so we can expect that our geomagnetic field, we have beautiful field around the planet that is protecting us against all kind of rays, you know, from the sun, but also from the rest of the cosmos. So I call that solar winds from the sun, and I call it galactic cosmic rays from anywhere else from the galaxy and outside from the intergalactic area, whatever. But those rays are dangerous for us, so it's good we have a field which is geomagnetic and that is filtering it. But, you know, like when you have a squash ball, this is also happening with electromagnetic collisions. When the sun with its solar wind is coming towards the planet, and it meets our you need to answer a call. Is it okay? Now we are doing it the first time, so I saw you got a kind of a ping pong, and I didn't know if you were going to answer a call.
Oops. No.
No. We have to stop here.
Okay. We can just pause.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me press pause here. Pause recording now.
Okay. So that was my explanation about the sunspots and solar flares. Then I got into the coronal holes. And I said the coronal holes, the streams are coming towards our planet every 4 weeks. Then there are several coronal holes, so we can just expect all the time there is this coronal hole coming back, and that's a small one, that's a big one, that's a huge one, and now it's very active, now it's calm. So that's what those space weather watchers are doing, and they say now for coming days we will go through a big coronal hole stream, and that coronal hole stream is bringing a lot of solar plasma, a lot of ionized particles. So it is a lot of protons and neutrons, and yeah, it contains elements. We don't have to go that deep, but it doesn't have that many electrons. So it are stripped atoms, and they call it ionized particles. And they are in such big volumes that we talk about density and we talk about temperature, because the density increases. That means that the particles go more nervous, and that makes a higher temperature. And the more they come, the faster they go. And that's the solar wind speed. Those are three things we talk about. We have a solar wind speed, and we have a density and a temperature. And it is radioactive, and you know, I rarely use that word because it's frightening people. They think about a nuclear reaction, and yeah, that's something else, you know. You can also go to the hospital and get an X-ray, and you're not going to die, and that's still radioactive. So the sun is bringing radioactive I call it rays. I call it cosmic rays, but then from the sun. So it's, for me, solar winds, solar particles, solar rays. So, you know, they come in a big volume, and they meet our protection field around the Earth. It's the geomagnetic field. And that is like a squash ball. It gets a bump, you know. So if you have the Earth, this is my head, and you have the geomagnetic field, and the sun is there, and then suddenly the stream comes, and it gives a bump. So the whole geomagnetic field gets pushed away. So on the sun side, it's almost not there, and on the other side, there's a lot. But what's happening with that field, it's of course going to bounce back, just like the squash ball is doing, or the tennis ball. And this is the geomagnetic turbulence that we're going through. And the geomagnetic turbulence has dealt that much effect on the Earth that we talk about geomagnetic storms. They can really reach storm levels. And with storm levels, there's a lot happening, and that's where we have the space watching, the space weather observers for. And they say, you know, we get a category 1, a G1, or a G2, or a G3 level geomagnetic storms. And what does that mean? Well, that's been explained, you know, a G1 and a G2 or whatever. You know, if you go into G3, they keep the airplanes on the ground in the areas where they expect the G3, because it's completely going to disturb all electronic equipment. So it's just a too big risk to get a plane into the air or get it down. If it's in the air, it's okay, you know, but you know, the communication to get a plane up and to get it down, it's not a nice thing if your screen is not working, where you can see where the other planes are. And that's what we talk about. Devices are completely out of order because of those penetrating particles. And we have a few astronauts in the International Space Station. They have a special protection room where they need to go in when those particles are coming in. That's just because it's too much. It's too much. And we are, of course, protected. We are on the ground, but still, and there you go, we get penetrated. And it's basically the reason why I started this. Like I say, hey, you know, if you are with a high sensitive person and you see all of a sudden a change in the person, and the only thing she says, there's a solar flare, and you see that she's basically fading away, and you look at the hands, and the hands start getting red, blue, purple, black, and you look at the feet, the same is happening. I say, well, this is it looks like you're burning. And she says, yes, I am burning. Yes. I said, but what is that? And that's made me like, I have to find out, she's being radiated, and how is that possible? So that's how I got into, there's something happening with us, and she cannot be the only one. So of course I found more and more and more people who are highly sensitive to rays from space. And it got pretty far for me. Like I said, you know, if we are getting affected, why is not everybody aware? And then I said, yeah, you're growing inside. I became aware that it likely needs to be a correlation with your frequency. You know, the higher your frequency, which is like, let's go into the spiritual world, you know, the higher your frequency, the more sensitive you seem to be to those incoming energies.
Yes.
So there's a lot that explains why many people are not feeling it and other people are almost fainting. And I'm talking about it. I know about the people who are fainting. And
Yeah.
but nice. And I start describing and say, wait a minute, you can find several entities, companies, business, whatever, people who are providing information about space. But why do they do it? Because they have a kind of an insurance, they have a security. It's their power plant, or it is their phone company, or it is their airline. So they are pretty much looking on what is the impact from those rays on the electronics.
Yes.
And nobody is giving alerts for people. And I say, but wait a minute, it's just not one. There are so many people who are fainting and they don't know why. So that's why I said, hey, here, those rays, we know when they come, because that's why they have the satellites for. So we know when they come, and we know what's going to happen. And I'm going to write the update and say, this is coming,
Yeah.
You're going to get, the particles are going to penetrate you,
Right.
and that will heat up your system.
Yeah.
And when your system starts heating up, your heart needs to pump higher, so you get a higher heart pressure. And when you have heavier heartbeats, where is that going? Yeah, to places like, here we go, third eye starts getting pressure, eyeballs get eyeball pressure, you get those beeps in your ears, and you get things like, I feel something in my neck. And I started describing all around my head, like I said, it's like I put my head in the microwave oven. I've never done it.
Yeah.
It's the only place in my body that feels like I'm having a fever.
Yes.
But if you have a fever, it's all over your body. But it's just my head that is so sensitive.
Yeah.
So it looks like the higher chakras are more sensitive to the higher frequencies of high, and those are the radioactive, high frequent rays.
Yeah.
Here you go. I don't have to be a professor or a doctor to say I can predict it. And once I post it, the people are already replying, So that's proof enough.
Right.
And if I know that this is happening to a conscious being, then I know it's also affecting animals. It's affecting plants and trees, and it is affecting crystals. It's affecting the planet. It's affecting the whole solar system.
Yes.
So what is going on? So I got very far into this, like I say, hey, wait a minute. That's remarkable. If you have intensities in solar activities, isn't it interesting that we get heavier earthquakes at that moment? Right. I just explained the geomagnetic field, and it has to go somewhere, If you think about a normal thing like, hey, there's dark clouds coming, it looks like it's going to rain and a lot of thunder, and you see a lighting flash looking for the weakest spot in your region.
Right.
It's a tree, or it's a street light, or it's a church, or whatever, and bam, that's the lightning going in. Well, look at this in a big planetary scale, and this highly charged field that gets so much energy from the sun needs to uncharge somewhere. And where is it looking? On the weakest places around the planet. Yeah. Those are the fault lines. What are fault lines? Are places where we get earthquakes and where we get volcanic eruptions. And those are always happening, but they get more intense the moment we have those energies coming in from space. Right. So it's predictable. There are people who are becoming the expert. They do earthquake watches and they do earthquake forecasts. And of course, scientists say, as long as you cannot prove it, we don't believe it. But they are more and more accurate in predicting. So what do you need to prove? You can predict and it is happening. Right. You say there are 3, 4, 5 places we can expect a 6+ or a 7+ earthquake, and bam, there he is. Yeah, I think that's a good thing that you are that far, even if you're a pseudoscientist, and that's what we talk about right now. That it's not scientific, but pseudoscientific.
Right.
So yeah, Sheila, that's where I got. I'm not becoming an earthquake expert, but I see it's happening, and I know volcanic activities. It's not remarkable for me that the Hawaii volcano became much more nervous when we had a 6+ earthquake, which we rarely have there, but we had that during geomagnetic storms. They predicted a geomagnetic storm. I didn't really expect it, but I still felt, it's a prediction. Let me bring it up that there is a geomagnetic storm coming. But, here I already wrote that's it. Whatever is going to happen, it's not a strong one, it's not a long one, so it's not what I really expect, but here it is. You see, for pictures that I share, and one is the explanation about the sun. If there are solar flares, if there are activities that bring our X-rays towards our planet, then we have an X-ray flux that is going up. Well, that's not, it's flat. We have no solar activity, so there is a proton flux which is flat. And because there is a flat proton flux, we have a lot of activities around the electron flux. And there's a dotted line here, and that's 1,000 particles per square centimeter. And yeah, when it goes above, I receive alerts that the electron flux has reached certain levels. So you see all those, there are 4 lines, they are from 2 satellites, and they are in the different frequency, and they are all above the average. And that's a very normal thing lately. For more than 1.5 years, I noticed that we are pretty constant in electron storm levels when there is nothing coming from the sun. And that relates to that the sun is going to its minimum. So there are just less and less and less protons coming in from the sun. So we have a pretty active electron area. So, okay. And the fourth is what we call the geomagnetic field. And this field, you know, if it's on 0, then there is no magnetic field. It's no good. It's there, but it shouldn't be there all the time. So it's normal to have it on level 1 or level 2 or level 3, which is all what is called green. But the moment it gets more active because there's something coming in from the sun, and that can be a solar flare, then it's just a peak. And if it's the coronal hole stream, then it is building up and it's going to last for a couple of days. Then it gets yellow if it's a level 4. And it gets red if it's higher than 4. And then we're coming into this area, and this is where we start talking about storms. So a level 5 is a G1 minor storm, and level 6 is a moderate storm, and 7 is strong, and whatever. So, okay, that was what I wanted to explain. This was not an exciting post, and I gave my updates, and this is a previous post that I always give a link, you know, so this is how it looked. Right. In the previous situation, well, we didn't get it this time. That was a G2. You see here, that is what I just explained. A level 2 had even happened, and which is not here in this picture, but it came later. But I'm not going to that post. You see here, it's just, I say here, there's nothing happening, and I ended with that. As you know, it just never got a fair chance to cause a geomagnetic storm, merely because the stream wasn't powerful enough, as I already indicated. And the other thing is, it has to have just bring it into a southern direction. We have a North Pole, and if the solar plasma cloud is coming in and it has a southward direction, then it can very easily come into our North Pole, bam, and then it enters our atmosphere. Well, it didn't. It didn't have a southern direction. So anyway, I closed this post, and I could go to September.
All right.
Yes,
all right.
And then I meet Ellen.
We're going into September of 2017 because there was some extreme energies going on then, and that will really show the extremes as far as the charts go.
There were sunspots, and not just a bit, they were big, and we call big when it is bigger than the Earth, and we call them very big when they get the size of Jupiter. Well, that happened 3 times in July, and again, and it was maybe August or again July, I don't remember, but in September, for the 3rd time, a Jupiter-sized sunspot was showing up, and well, this one was big, and it brought what we call M-class and X-class solar flares, and those are the ones to watch. You know, if you have X-class solar flares and the sunspot is exactly Earth-facing, so the whole solar flare is coming straight towards us, then in theory, and it can happen one day, so then it's no longer theory, but just let's say if there is an X-class high heavy solar flare coming towards our planet, then it may have that much effect that some scientists call it a solar kill shot. And the kill shot means, you know, if we have just a normal local geomagnetic level 2 or level 3, it can already affect a power plant. And a when a power plant goes down, then we have millions of people without electricity, and of course companies and maybe even data centers, whatever. But if there's an H-class flare, then it's not local. Then it's affecting the whole planet, and the whole planet can get that much solar radiation that everywhere where you just can have gas, you have a power plant that's going to break down. And if it's breaking down on certain spaces, then all of a sudden it completely collapses. So then you can have complete continents without electricity. And it's not that they are driving around in a car and they're going to fix it in a day. So that's what we know. If we have that attack,
right,
then for at least weeks we will be without electricity in complete countries or maybe continents. You know what that affects. That even suppliers are not going to drive their truck because of their computer program is not telling that they need to bring milk around the corner. And they may do improvisation, but you see the chaos.
Right.
You have to bring everything into movement. How do you get the fuel out of your fuel pump station if
Right.
it's not working because there's no electricity? So you cannot fuel your tank, so you cannot drive your car. So how are you going to bring the food anyway? So this is all, that's the solar kill shot thing. And if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen. It's not, but I'm not saying it's never going to happen. It's possible. So we had September and we had those X-class, and there were just even 9 point whatever. So that was almost off the chart. But that was not Earth facing, so we just got a big hit, but not straight. It went a bit along, so the Earth was affected, but not full phased. So that whole September, I just couldn't stop. If you just see this note here, and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 posts in just little over a week, and I already apologized. I apologize that I keep posting, but it's just because there's so much happening. It was one after the other X-class flare, on top of that we already had heavy coronal hole streams, and that was causing a lot of level 4 geomagnetic storms and proton charts getting out of the chart, and everything that you could imagine in the chart, it no longer even fit in the chart. And next to those posts, I said, plus, and we go back to my introduction, I started a post about flash floods. I said, it's not local. This is what your media is telling you, that there is a flood and they are giving it attention or not. But if it's not local because it's happening in every continent all over the world, then I call it global. So here's a post, and I said, this is a post, and I call it flash floods. It's happening all over the world. Why? Because of this activity of the sun. And we have category 5 hurricanes. Are they rare? Yes, they are rare. But this wasn't rare in August and September. One after the other, category 5 was coming up. And we had all those Jupiter-sized sunspots, one after the other. That's not a coincidence. Hey, we had an 8+ earthquake. How many 8+ earthquakes do we have? Once a year? Maybe?
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. And if it's happening more than once, that's very interesting. So it was, again, in the same period, flash floods, hurricanes category 5, 8+ earthquakes, and there were planetary alignments. Here we go back to my cycles. It affects, it all plays in. And not unimportant, we had an equinox in September. So all those things, I related it to the shift in my last post, and I said I called this we said shift month. There was so much coming together that it did have an impact on our shift. Yeah, well, let me just go. I'm going to jump into a post. Let me see September. I'm going to take September 7, I think. Then we are just in the middle of, come here. Come on.
There's such an increase in, right now, what I'm observing is an increase in giant hailstorms.
Yeah.
Golf ball, baseball size hailstorms.
Yeah. You're looking at your screen right now, eh?
Yeah. And flooding everywhere.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, it seems like it's ongoing. And then, we could also say that there's just terrible news out there of people, going on these shooting ranges, and I mean, it's there's a lot of things going on with people right now, and I think they're being affected by these energies, but because they don't know that's what it is, they're acting out you know, the only way that their patterns are, and really, you know, because there's so much anxiety that's people are feeling when these energies get high, and they're calling it anxiety, and it is like an anxiety attack. But you know, if you were to change your vocabulary, you would just be saying, you know, I'm feeling intense sensations right now from, you know, whatever. But it really does seem to be having an effect on people as well.
It does, yeah, it does. I know exactly what you're referring to. Go back to the microwave oven. If you're getting boiled here, if your sleep pattern is disturbed, if you are emotionally out of balance, and if you're let's give you 3 examples here about the physical impacts. Whether it is the real physical or the energetical body, I get away from it, but I say we are globally experiencing all together at the same time a tooth infection.
Yes, exactly.
Nobody is aware, but you look at Facebook and one of the other posts, somebody's going to hospital or to the dentist and gonna get whatever. And I don't.
Yeah.
Hi, doggy.
Yeah.
You want to do your dog?
Okay. He's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is remarkable that all together, I don't go to the dentist or hospital because I already know this is cosmic. If something happens to me, the first thing I look, are there more people? Yes, there are more people having a tooth infection. Or I'm in Rome last September, that was that month, you know, and I was in Rome and I couldn't move the step. I was in a hotel room and I thought I was dying, and that was my kidney.
Yes.
And my first thought was, you know, I came here by train, and those are the high-speed trains, and they do kadunk, 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 kadunk. So for a couple of hours, I've been shaking my body. So maybe there are kidney stones. But you just go online, and one after the other was going to hospital with kidneys. Yes, here we are. Yeah. And that happened for about a week. That a lot of people had to go all the time to the restroom.
Yes.
And, I'm not posting about you have to pee a lot, but that was happening, you know.
I experienced the exact same thing.
Exactly. So we have this, we have the tooth, we have the kidney, we get people going for heart.
Absolutely.
And so this is what radiation is doing. And of course, if this is affecting us in a physical or energetic way in such levels, then of course people can get crazy.
Right.
They don't know why, but they get easily upset, easily triggered. You look at Facebook posts and I see how people get upset and start attacking and so on. And I just make a post and say, you know, these are pretty much shift symptoms because we have it all over the world. It's not related to a president in the United States or a Chinese whatever or whatever. It's from the cosmos. You know.
And again, that's why we're doing this show. That's why we post those posts, is to stop the fear. And I, you know, some of the most awakened, high vibration people I know that are sensitives have been triggered to go to the hospital. Because those heart palpitations, I understand how that can scare you, but if you will just be calm and breathe through these, because everyone that I know that's gone to the doctor for this, it always comes back, you're fine. Because medical machines do not know how to measure what we are experiencing.
Exactly, and I'm happy if somebody who's an expert, this is good if you feel to go, you know. I will never say don't, you know, if you feel to go. And I'm happy when an expert says you're fine.
Yes.
Because why? Because I'm not that happy if somebody goes home with a lot of medicine. Because it's my personal belief, you know, then you have to cure from 2 things. One from what's happening, and the other thing you have to cure from the medicines. Because
absolutely.
That's my belief. And again, don't count me there, but I never use any medicine. And
neither do I.
this is the reason.
Yes.
So anyway, I was into September, and of course here is a post that say that's where we have to go, September 8th, because it looks so red here. Yeah, that's the exception. You know, all the time it's always green, and there's nothing happened. All of a sudden, because of those solar flares, X-ray, and at the same time the Coronal Holes streams, we had high level radio alerts, we had high level wherever and high level, and I just say, you know, I don't have to explain it all in detail. It's the same as that I'm going to explain the whole periodic table, but you see it's orange, yellow and red, and
Right.
not a 1, not a 2, it has a level 4. So this was what was going on in September, and not once, it occurred several times.
Yes.
So that explains Hurricane Irma, that explains a volcano here, volcano there, that explains the flash floods, and that explains the earthquake level 8. It has to go somewhere. So.
Right. Right.
So you remember the other post where this was all flat. Here it's just not flat, you see.
Yeah.
This is something else than flat, and this is something else than flat. And that's
Right.
what I'm sharing. So.
Right. Like many of us, me included, I would see your charts, and if everything kind of looked level, then I figure, you know, maybe what I'm experiencing is maybe from the cell towers that are across the street, or I happen to carry the Ring of Fire on my back, so I can tell where pressure is and where the next, you know, area of either volcano or earthquake's going to happen because of the pressure on my back. And it took me forever to figure that one out, but I finally did, you know, as I became more aware that I am a sensitive, and this is part of who I am. I had been shown a vision where it showed the planet Earth with its grid system, and it showed that I had the same exact grid system on my physical body. And so then it was just a matter of time. I had to let go of medical terminology in order to get to know my body as part of the global grid system, and quit thinking that there was something wrong with me, and start this amazing exploration of my connection with all that is. And by showing these charts and getting to know the patterns and how these different energies are affecting us, again, it has allowed me to let go of the fear. Yeah. And then at that point, I became very interested. I found this network of sensitives, and you know, that was, I think it's very important as you're beginning to explore your own physical being and all these energies, that you have a network of people, because when you know that your people from across the globe are feeling the same symptoms, just as you have spoken about, that we can go, okay, all right, this too shall pass. And that's all you really have to say. And that's all you know, if you have the ability to sit down and rest, just sit and breathe for a while. If you have the capacity to be able to do that, it really does help pass the time as these energies pass. And when you start keeping track of these charts and what the other people are saying, just like you said, for me, it makes life way more exciting, because I know that I am participating in this huge transition, and that is an honor.
It is. I like what you are saying here. There are two things that I briefly come back to. The one is what I frequently write when I relate it to the shift. You know, I always end with my one-liner, we can do this shit, and shift between brackets, like, because it's pretty shit sometimes. But I say adjust, adjust, adjust. And why do I say it? Because I know this is not a one-off, one time, and it's ever, forever gone. No,
Right.
I know we're in a kind of a cycle, and it's only getting more and more intense.
Right.
We are getting more and more exposed to galactic cosmic rays because I know the sun is going into a sleep state in the sense of that's why we call it a little ice age at least, and it's even maybe a bigger ice age. But we're going through this acceleration in evolution, and is because we are getting more and more radiated. Just adjust it. That's what I'm writing about, So there's one to give it to you, like, no fear, but don't think this is it and now I can go. Be ready, the next one will come.
Right.
And it can be more intense.
Absolutely.
That's one. And the other thing you mentioned was that cell tower, and I'm giving this smile like I like to contribute coming from love. And it does not take away that I'm pretty much aware about many things that we are not supposed to know. And I just take the normal words. You call it conspiracy, you call it truth seeker, you call it rabbit holes. Well, you name any rabbit hole, I've been there. You say how deep, I say as deep as you can get and maybe deeper. But that does not mean that I'm waking up every day and first thing I look is what's going wrong in the world. And then I'm going to see who's posted everything what's going wrong. And then what I'm going to post myself what's going wrong. It's not the vibe I like to contribute. I everything that that's only grows. So what if I focus on love? So I am aware about those power plants, about cell phone towers. I'm exploring it because I also have my apps, and apps are able to tell me when I you don't have to get, but here I have my iPhone, and when I activate an app and I go to my iMac, we're talking through my iMac now, it is showing a low radiation until I go into two areas of the iMac where it's all of a sudden exploding because there are two devices there that are bringing the radiation to a danger level. Yeah, what's danger? If I put my hand there all the time. So I'm not doing it. I'm sitting on a distance and I'm okay. But I talk about conspiracy and I talk about truth seeking because this is an area. The moment I start explaining what is happening with cell phone towers and radiation and Wi-Fi and what they are rolling out, they call it the fifth generation. That's no longer microwaves, but it's called milliwaves. It's another wavelength. There are many scientists that say should we first look at the dangers because there is it looks like there is, and they don't go further than that because at the moment they say we have proof that people are being affected by radio waves. Then there are worldwide claims coming. People are going to claim phone companies because of this. So nobody is saying there is proof. But if there are governments saying, be careful, and if the state of California, for instance, says more than be careful, they have a reason. And this is how far they can go. They cannot go further without juridical impact. But this is why it's having my interest. Hey, I'm not going to become the generation 5 cell phone tower bad news bringer, but it is radiation and it is another frequency. You have ionized, which is radioactive, X-rays, gamma rays, and you have non-ionized, and this radio frequency is not radioactive, but it is still radiating, still penetrating. And we have done research. We have people who answered questions, and if you take 5, that's not it. And when you take hundreds and you take different regions and you look all over the world and you have interviewed many people and you see how far are you living from a cell phone tower, and isn't it interesting that the closer you live to cell phone towers, you get, and here this is frightening, you get things which we know are called ascension symptoms because they talk about the beeps in the ears, they talk about pressure, they talk about heart palpitation, they talk about dizziness, they talk about sleeplessness. Hey, why are we calling it ascension symptoms? Well, because we are relating it to those galactic cosmic rays and solar rays. But here, be careful. If I go this far to say there is something going on we're not supposed to know, then you never know how long I will be on the internet. That's what's happening. So, and I'm not afraid to tell this, because this is not my reputation. I'm not bringing down governments or call for revolutions or whatever. But I want to be clear about people. Explore some more. Look, go. What I can find is something that you can find yourself as well, and that's the least I can do.
Absolutely. Also, there is, there is. When something huge happens, a shooting or a fire or something, there is a mass sadness or a mass fear, and those energies can also be felt, and that is not an ascension symptom.
No.
That is just another energy vibration pattern that's going about through the grids. And
totally,
it's just something to let it pass through.
I think you recognize something if I share that. Let us say the same woman that woke me up, in the sense of, I see your hands, I see your feet, I see you are fainting. This is real. There is something penetrating you, and I want to know what it is and why and how, and get my finger behind everything and get the pieces together.
Right.
The same woman also tells me there's an earthquake going to happen, and bam, the earthquake is starting somewhere, so she's aware. She gets the early warning of an earthquake. And it's the same, like I already explained now. I say there's a relation between the radiation coming from space, and it has effect on our geomagnetic field, and it starts shaking, and it has to find a way to release, and somewhere there's the earthquake coming. She already knows.
Yeah.
And when we were driving around and we said, let's go to this village and then visit that cathedral, she suddenly stopped. She says, I don't feel to go there right now. And I learned to not ask for explanation, because she was completely guided by, it's not good to be in that energetic area right now.
Right.
So that's the sensitivity, and it's the same, like you say, shootings, or it can be as little as possible, or it can be as global, or even solar or galactic or whatever. It's energy, and everything is interconnected, related.
Absolutely.
Absolutely right.
Okay, let's take a pause.
Okay, let's make. I took quite some time to give a full explanation about the sun and solar flares from sunspots and the coronal hole streams that keep reoccurring every 4 weeks, and the dance with our planet, with the geomagnetic field that starts bumping, and that brings a lot of turbulence, and it has to go somewhere, and it looks for the weak spots, and it finds, and we have heavier earthquakes that we can predict, and we have heavier hurricanes. If there's already a hurricane somewhere, well, that's a weak part of the earth, and the solar activities are finding those hurricanes, and they get more heavy, and all of a sudden people say, look at this hurricane, it's all of a sudden a category 5. I said, yes, it was explainable, because this solar coronal hole stream was on its way, and of course it's finding the weak spots in the earth. There is one. So earthquakes, volcanic eruptions along the weak tectonic fault lines, and hurricanes, those are the ones that some people are watching day and day. They predict, because of the sun, they predict disasters or whatever. That's not my thing. I focus on the people and our well-being, and I say, prepare, drink a lot of water, go into nature, let it go as much as possible through you, so those kind of things. But we cannot avoid it, and you cannot hide. It doesn't matter if you go to the top of your building or to the lowest level. Those rays are going straight through our planet, so there's nowhere to hide.
Right. And this is why I wanted to do this show, and the way you have been describing it is exactly how we are feeling it in our bodies, and it makes so much sense. But most of all, what we're doing here is trying to let you know that this is a natural process. It might be epic, but it is natural, and for our bodies to relate to these energies is natural. Just as you said, if you can just let this pass through, just like a storm passes through. And this is what this network of empaths that I have, when we share the energies that are happening right now, and understand how it's affecting our physical bodies, then we're able to let go of the fear.
Yep.
And that's the other reason why I chose you to do this show, is because you always, always bring the love into it and caution. There's nothing to fear here. And that is so important.
Yeah, beautiful. That's a very nice thing you bring in. That's really, I wasn't thinking about going there, but I can do it just in half a minute. I say, we had just a few months ago, somebody announced that a massive solar storm was going to engulf the Earth, and it was almost as if it was the end of days, you know. And of course, so many people believe everything, and so it got shared and shared all over the planet, and everybody was making it more panic and fear. And I thought, I already knew what's going to happen is nothing compared to what happened last September, where we are going, you know. And I say, you can do whatever, but why are you creating this fear? There is nothing going to happen. Just maybe there is a G1 geomagnetic storm coming, maybe a G2. It's still minor or moderate, and even if it would be strong, it is still not as much as we had last year. And last year nothing happened. So what is the panic? What is the fear? So I made the first time ever a video, and I called it a no fear from space video. And that's a bit where I started becoming more playful, and now my reports frequently are called a no fear from space weather update, because I'm seeing them all around. People want to get attention, and they don't get attention, so they blow it up, you know. This is you have your breaking news, and you have your hide for fear and go in your bunker and whatever, because if you don't, people are not going to watch your video, right? But this is what you see happening all over the place. So I don't think it's a good topic to do it, you know. People are easily scared about something from space. So I think it's exactly the wrong area where people will try to get attention or status or historic whatever or money by making a wrong use of those kind of things. There's nothing to it. Okay, so that was it. So another thing before we go to September, this topic, even if I would write a book isn't enough. I can write books. Why? Because you know, you're going, I see you smile when I call the word. I say, what if we talk about, put it in the context of the shift? There's the smile. Why is something with the sun, which is bringing radioactivity into our bodies, why is that related to our shift? Said, yeah, everything that's coming from the cosmos, so it's the sun or it's not the sun, it's bringing activities. And if I say the sun is active, then it has a very big, what we call a heliosphere, which is protecting the whole solar system against the galaxy and intergalactic activity. But what happens if the heliosphere becomes weaker? Then all those galactic cosmic rays, and I call them GCRs, galactic cosmic rays, they all come in. And they are not on an X-ray level, they are even higher, they are on a gamma ray level. So it's just a bit even more intense. And the only thing is they don't come in clouds causing a big storm. They come like, yeah, we call it happenings, like we had a blast, a gamma ray blast, because of somewhere a star exploded, a supernova, or a star collided, or whatever, something we don't know, because it's not bringing an identity card. I am from this exploded star, you know. It's just coming in all of a sudden, and we register them. We call them gamma ray bursts. We say, hey, this is from that area. If somebody knows it happened before, yes, it's probably that star just exploded, but we only know when it happened. We don't know when it's going to happen. So,
right.
Okay, altogether, if you think into trillions of galaxies and trillions of stars in every galaxy, then you can easily count how many stars are born every day and how many explode. And that explains why there is always cosmic ray activity, galactic cosmic ray. And it's so good to have the heliosphere that's protecting. But too bad, that sometimes is not that strong. And those are what we call the cycles of our sun. And the cycles of the sun, the small cycles, bigger cycles, much bigger cycles, like a clockwork. And the short cycles are about 10, 11 years. There we have the, call it solar maximum, where we have many, many sunspots, and solar minimum, where we have a couple of years with hardly any sunspot, which is where we are now, by the way. So the sun is going into a minimum. if you go into bigger ways, then we see that there is an activity into several hundred years where the sun is more active and less active, and because of the longer moment, the longer period, we see that it affects our climate. And that is why you see me frequently write about global cooling, which again was not the topic. Like I say, I've got nothing to do. Let me start talking about global cooling. But I had to, because I see there is something being told to the public which is not true. Everybody needs to read that there is a global warming, and it is not. There is a global cooling coming. I can prove it. I know the cycles. I see what is affecting those cycles, and those are our exoplanets. The Jupiters, the Saturns, Neptune, Uranus. Look how they are making their cycles, and see the pattern, and look back into other periods, and we see that there were grand solar minimums and grand solar maximums. Well, if they were in history, then I can also predict that they are occurring now and in the future. And it is occurring. And we see all those hail and all those cold and all those, record colds here. And yeah, the crops are going to be affected because, the farmers can no longer seed in the right moment. So anyway, that's why I'm talking about it, not to get any fame, but to make people aware there is no global warming, there is a global cooling, and it's not being caused by people who are producing gas, this is the sun, which is cycles, and the sun has nothing to do with gas, it's just always been warming up and cooling down and warming up and cooling down, and it's gonna cool down again. So that's what I explained about cycles. And then if you go in an even bigger cycle, then you are no longer talking about the planetary cycles, but the movement of our sun around in the galaxy. We have the galactic equator, and our whole solar system is a kind of a big waving above and below. And that's a 26,000 year cycle, and it is known as a precession cycle. And there you go, my other topic, real sky astrology. I say, if you know that the sun is moving and you see that we are looking from a different angle into space, then why are we having Western astrology, which is telling that we now is going to have a full moon in Taurus, where if you go outside and you see the moon and it's in Pisces, or it is in Aries, but why? Because that is what's really happening. If you look in the sky, you see where are the sun and the moon and the planets. But astrology is just looking into tables, and it says the tables tell us that the sun is now in, and they say that the sun is in, but the sun is not. So I have another topic. I say, if we are sensitive to energies, we are sensitive for solar flares, we are sensitive to coronal hole swings, we are sensitive to gamma ray blast, then we are also sensitive to the moon and the sun related to the signs where they are coming from. And we need some awareness. So I bring real sky astrology. So we bring all those things together and say this long 26,000 year cycle also has a big movement, and then we come into 150,000 years or 150 million years or 250 million years, 240 million years or whatever. So put that in quarters of 60 million, and you have very, very, very big ice ages. That's what we can look back into history. So this is all like, I'm not predicting that we're going into a very big ice age, but we're pretty close. And I'm not predicting we're going into an ice age, but we are pretty close. And I'm for sure predicting that we're going into a little ice age, because that's unavoidable. That's happening because of the cycles already show us that we are going into a little ice age. That doesn't mean that the mammoths are going to die, It means that it's getting colder all over in an average, and that affects food production. And I think that's an issue, because if you look back in the previous grand solar minima, there were a lot of political movements. Why? Yeah, not because people say, let's start a revolution, but people get hungry. If people get hungry and the government is doing nothing, maybe it's time to do something. So again, an awareness. So thank you. This is movements, everything is related, and that's why I always say this, everything happens in cycles. And when we move in those long ways through certain areas of the galaxy, then we all of a sudden come into a place where we haven't been for a very, very long time. And that's a place we don't have books that explain. Long time ago, we were here, so it's new. But this is where we are. We are in a place where there is less density, less protection against those galactic cosmic rays. And it happened before. And what did people find out? They found out that there was a kind of what I call an acceleration in our evolution. They just found it. They said it looked like something all over the world was causing an effect that made all kind of living creatures have a big evolution in their DNA. I said, wait a minute, didn't I read something somewhere? And you bring the pieces together. You say, this is it. So the cycles that we are experiencing, the cycles bring us through a piece in space where we haven't been for a long time. And that cycle and that position is an era of a few hundred years where we are being exposed to a very much more intense galactic activity, which is penetrating our bodies in such a way that our DNA is being altered. Now, and what are scientists doing? They say if there is radioactivity that is affecting our DNA, then we get ill. So that's not what I'm doing. I say when we have cosmic rays that are affecting our DNA, then it is going to wake up sleeping parts. Right. That is the evolution. And I talked about that we are going towards, more longevity, rejuvenation. That's all possible. I'm not saying I've got the proof, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the relation, that we are awakening parts that have always been there but have been asleep. So there you got the connection between what's happening in the galaxy in cycles and the shift. So I think we covered it all. And now, if the sun is going to sleep, then I could stop and say, let's not talk about the sun anymore because there's nothing going to happen. Yeah, of course, things happen. Of course, it still has the coronal hole streams every cycle. Only the sunspots, they are there, and sometimes they will be very heavy, but they are less frequent compared to when there is a maximum. So we can go to September last year.
All right. Your explanation takes the mystery out of it. Yeah. Whenever you are able to observe patterns, it's not a mysterious thing. It's not. It just proves how natural it is and how natural this evolution is. And bless the hearts of all the sensitives because they're really feeling everything now. And we really got to stick together and walk this path with each other because this is extremely exciting time. And I did a show that being an empath is a gift and a curse because, for myself, I know that the more sensitive I become means the more evolved I'm becoming. And I'm okay with that.
That's the same. No, but this is beautiful. I see your smile, you see my smile. There's so much love and compassion for what's happening. And I'm never going to come from fear. Whatever is going to happen, I could predict Hawaii, but I'm not going to post a fear post. Something dangerous is going to happen. It's just going to happen. And if one day, and it's not going to be in my life, then it's going to be in somebody else's life, the North and the South America continent are going to break apart. It's just going to happen. Well, what? So what? The Earth is also shifting. So wherever it goes, it goes. And we have all had our dreams of floods or things coming in from space. People wake up, have dreams, and bring them all together. You say it's not a coincidence. Everybody sees that there is probably some disaster going to happen. But does it mean that we are going to die and it doesn't matter what we do? Or is it like we are here for a reason and it's part of evolution and we're going to get through? Maybe it's a good idea to have a global disaster and to have some water here and there where it's not supposed to be. It helps.
It does.
It's not. I cannot talk to any government right now and say, "Are you willing to listen to me? And can you fucking stop talking about this global cooling or global warming thing?" There is something more important now. They're not going to listen because they get their carbon tax from every part of the world because everybody is having an agreement that they're going to pay carbon tax because we are producing carbon and it is heating up the earth, and if we pay tax then we're going to cool down the earth. Yes, okay, do it one more year and then keep explaining what's really happening because there's nothing going to happen in the warming. It's just only getting cooler and cooler. So anyway, so no fear, it's love.
No fear.
And I really appreciate everybody who's positively contributing, and it doesn't matter in which way. But of course, I've got a kind of spiritual, bridging spirit and science feet on the ground, common sense way. And my frequency is high. I don't have to explain. It's there. I've got a high frequency. And that does not mean that I'm deeply into that Arcturian spaceships have landed and are going to help us here and going to help us there. And I'm not into other ETs that are activating a gateway. And that's okay if people believe it. You are free to have your belief. And if it's real, that's also fine. I'm not experiencing it. I'm not seeing it. And I don't need it. And that's my feet on the ground. I say it's beautiful if there are extraterrestrials helping us. It's beautiful if higher beings are helping us. But I can tell you one thing: if there are no ETs and if there are no higher beings helping us, the shift is still happening. And we are humans, and there are a couple of humans say, let's do this, we're going to activate the portal. And I tell you, it's beautiful, but be sure you activate the right portal, just to start with. And the other thing, if there were no humans, the shift is still happening. That's just my message, because I see the natural cycle, and we've been there before, we're going to get there again in the future. With or without humans, with or without ETs, with or without portal and gateways, but anyway, it's still beautiful. If people have this way to contribute, it's just beautiful. We need it, so that's how I try to look at it.
Well, I look forward to sharing your posts and sharing this show with all the people I know who are going to get something from this, and thank you for your time and effort and for sharing your passion.
You're more than welcome. I'm here on Facebook, and my posts are public in this topic. Of course, I've got some things that are just for friends, but I talk about the shift, I talk about space weather, I talk about real sky astrology. Those things are public because I think everybody should know.
Right. And we're going to put links to all the places that you get your information, so that you too can begin doing your research and get to know these charts and get to know your body and get to know that we are one. We are one with all, and it's very cool. And thank you for taking this journey with me.
Beautiful, Sheila. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And we had a lot of beautiful improvisation. I love those kind of things.
Absolutely.
We already know. It's just, hey, what's happening? And it's great. We never know where we're going, but we have covered the things